Well, hello and welcome to the Terri Cole Show. I am your host, Terri Cole. I'm in the writing cave right now because I have 43 more days until I have to hand in my full manuscript for my book that is coming out in April of 2021 called Boundary Boss. So this week I'm sharing with you a training that I did on perfectionism for my ongoing monthly training program called Thrive Hive. And I know that you're really going to enjoy this because it is a deep dive into the topic of perfectionism that many of you have told me causes great pain in your life. As a master coach, one of the things that I do is help people transform their lives by making small, consistent shifts. And I provide valuable insights on mindset and strategies that you need to be more empowered in your life every single day. So if you want to get more content like this and have more of an interactive relationship with me, make sure, ladies, because it's for ladies only, you check out my monthly program called Thrive Hive. Each month in Thrive Hive, I train on a new topic and help you learn and integrate new transformative concepts and strategies into your daily life. And at the end of every single month, I do a live mentorship call where I answer all of your questions. So to check it out, all you need to do is go to terricole.com/thrive. That's Terri Cole, TerriCole.com/thrive, THRIVE, to get deeper dive training similar to the one that is in this episode today. Because if you like this, you will definitely love that training program. During the show, you'll hear me refer to a perfectionism checklist, and you can get that checklist along with the 6 steps that I created for you to basically get out of the perfectionism trap. All you need to do to get your free goodies from me is go to terricole.com/237, which is the episode number. terricole.com/237. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Well, hello and welcome to this month's monthly mindful focus, which is called Perfectly Imperfect. So when I asked you guys to give me ideas of things that you would like a deeper dive on, perfectionism is something that continued to come up. So many of you are still sort of dealing with these perfectionist traits. So I'm going to start with us getting clear about what are the traits? How can you tell? And actually, I found a really cool quiz that I'm going to give you the link to if you want to take the quiz, which is like, am I a perfectionist? Because what we're really talking about is how to be a high achiever and not a perfectionist. Because high achievers have a tendency to be way more productive, actually, than perfectionists, but also to enjoy the process more. So a couple of questions for you to consider. This will all be in the little PDF, so don't worry about it. But I want you to think about, do you have a critical eye? Are you very critical of yourself, but are you also critical of others? Rather than seeing what's right, do you naturally see what's wrong? The second thing to ask yourself is about how driven you are and what you're driven by. High achievers have a tendency to be inspired by what they want to achieve, what they want to accomplish. Perfectionists have a tendency to be driven by fear of failure. Those are two extremely polar experiences, although a perfectionist and high achievers can all be successful. But I want you to think about what actually drives you. Another thing to think about is, do you have completely unrealistic standards? So are you setting the bar so high in your own life, with your family, with your friends, but most of the time with perfectionists, it's really ourselves we're torturing others as well, but it's more self-focused. So do you have the bar extremely high that it makes it almost impossible to be successful? Think about what your goals are, how realistic or unrealistic. The next thing to think about, perfectionists are very outcome-oriented. So it's sort of like the results are everything, almost in an anything, any means necessary type way, where with high achievers, the results are important, but the process is also important. Learning is also important. Changing something is also important. Huge thing for perfectionists, and you all know this, is that the drive to get things done, to have things just so, is so much about fear. So if you're living this perfectionist lifestyle, even if you've been fighting it, even if you became aware of it in one of the courses that you took originally, Real Love Revolution, Boundary Bootcamp, whatever it is, it may be something that maybe you looked at, you recognized it, but the truth is that you could use a refresher on how you can actually change these tendencies within yourself. Because if you think about it, if we're very results oriented, that's one small portion of our life, where how much, most of the time, we're actually in process, right? Another indication of perfectionism is procrastinating. So if you're really a perfectionist, you don't like to do things that you're not good at or that you don't already know that you've mastered. And if you don't know exactly how to do something, or if you don't think you're masterful, you can procrastinate. Or because you've already had the experience that things have to be just so, that starting a project you know is going to be like a drill and is going to be so exhausting because of the way that you are, that you procrastinate starting something. So does any of that sound familiar to you? I want you to just think about it. Another thing is being kind of defensive. High achievers can handle constructive criticism. Because perfectionism is really a dysfunction that we learn and that we sort of grow in childhood, any kind of criticism feels bad and threatening. Anytime someone is saying they think that you did something wrong or you could have done something different or better, even if you're able to control your defensiveness, do you feel defensive? I have to say, with most perfectionists, I don't even think that you actually can control the defensiveness. You want to say why you did it this way, or that you thought of everything and that they're wrongly accusing you of something. So why do we care about perfectionism? Because it really sucks the joy out of what we're doing in our lives, because life is so messy. There is no direct line to anything. There really are no full-on rules to get where it is we want to go. We have all these decisions that we need to make on a daily basis. And perfectionism, because when you really think about it, if we were to sum it up, it's basically killing yourself on a project, doing amazingly well, and having 2% of it not go exactly the way you wanted it to go, and getting caught up on the 2%. And I find that a lot of women who, in my courses, in my private practice, they'll say, like, to justify the perfectionism, they'll say, well, I'm harder on myself than I am anyone else, even though they're also usually hard on other people, have super high standards as well. Not always, but I have to say it's kind of in there. Even if you're not saying it to someone else, you're probably judging what they did and the way that they did it. But that's not like an excuse. So being mean to yourself or having these impossible standards for yourself really is not a justification. And you don't want that for your kids. You don't want that in your relationship, right? We need to have this ability, the flexibility to roll with the punches. And when you really get down to the massive difference from a psychological point of view, my own experience of people who are high achievers versus perfectionism, the perfectionists have low self-esteem. They don't feel great about themselves because how they feel about themselves is directly related to their latest accomplishment. Getting something done, getting another certification of some kind, getting your PhD, defending your PhD, whatever it is that you're doing, it's about that external thing that told you were good enough, that you were smarter, that you were special, that you were important. High achievers know that somewhere down deep. And they also know that life is messy and that in high achieving, there'll be mistakes. And how you learn from those mistakes has everything to do with the difference between high achieving and perfectionism as well. So with perfectionism, there's this tendency to ruminate on the mistakes. There's a tendency to continue to have the circular thinking about what you did wrong and how bad that was, or how if you had, been on your game, that wouldn't have happened, or whatever your internal negative voice is saying. So you can also take the quiz. I gave you guys the thing to take the quiz so you can see what they say about it. I thought it was pretty accurate. I took it just to see if I thought it was even decent. And I thought it was, and I just figured it might be fun for us to take a quiz together. But let's move into what is it that you can do? Baby steps to change. So the first thing is awareness, of course, just like everything that we do. Do you know? Did any of those things we just talked about, did that resonate with you? Do you say, yeah, that is really me. I really am doing that. So awareness and a desire to change it. Because here's the thing I found with a lot of perfectionists is that in some way it's a badge of honor, right? We think of the word perfect. That means everything is correct. Everything is right. In a way, quote unquote, who wouldn't want to be perfect? Well, I'm too much of a therapist to fall for that one because there is no perfect. It isn't real. So you've got to really think about, it's like perfectionism and killing yourself, that it can be worn like a badge of honor. Like people telling you your standards are too high, like unrealistically high. And if you're a real perfectionist, but you're not really you actually think that's a compliment as opposed to something that you need to work on or that you need to look at. So I want you to really be honest with yourself. The way that I used to wear my busyness, right? Oh, busy, 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 never sleep, blah, blah, blah. That was a badge of honor, right? I thought busyness made me important in my late 20s. I really did. Listen, I wouldn't consciously say that, but I did. I thought that working myself to death, that was noble or to be respected or made me special. It really just made me tired, and eventually I just got cancer. So I think that balance is what we're talking about. But the real reason why I chose this as this topic for this month is because perfectionists suffer. The quality of your life and of your relationships suffers from this. And there are mindfulness tricks and different little strategies that you can incorporate into your daily life that can help you get out of this round robin of dissatisfaction, because that's really what it is when we think about what is perfectionism. It's being perpetually dissatisfied in some way. So it actually doesn't make you as productive as the high achievers. So why don't we say, for all of you who are identifying as a perfectionist, that we're going to make some shifts and some small changes that will move you into being able to be a high achiever and enjoy your life more. Internal dialogue is huge. So we need to know, that's the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, is focus on the internal dialogue. Be aware. How often do you obsess over small mistakes? How often do you fall into the category of procrastinating? Do you not do something because you're not proficient at it yet, or because you're not good at it? Do you stop doing something that you could enjoy simply because you're not good at it? These are all indications of perfectionism. So I want you to get really clear about where you are in the process, and then we're dialing into what you focus your attention, your time, and your inner dialogue on. So I want you to think about, do you focus it on, great job, we'll learn this for next time so we won't do that thing, or do you focus on what's not happening? And then you need to alter it, right? You need to be mindful enough. We can do the rubber band trick. I'll put that in the PDF. You've got to be mindful enough. It can't just be like regular Tuesday, this is how it is inside my mind. It's got to be, I'm willing to put in the effort to do something different to be alleviated from this prison of perfectionism, because that's what's required. The next step has to be about setting realistic goals. Instead of doing what you always do, normally do, which is a very all or nothing. Perfectionism has a very black or white feeling to it. We're going to try to make changes in small steps. And instead of feeling like you need to do a triathlon to get yourself in shape, committing to walking 10 minutes a day at a start. If you're very out of shape, walking 30 minutes a day perhaps. Something small and consistent. This is more in the vein of a high achiever. The all or nothing, the under pressure, that is all about perfectionism. Another thing is about enjoying the process of whatever it is that you're doing in your life. If you spend so much time beating yourself up, if you spend so much time focusing on what went wrong, or being like, I just need to get through, I just need to check this off the list, you're missing your life. Because so much of our life is just the mundane, like daily crap that we have to do. Can you enjoy that process? Can you bust out some lavender oil? Can you prioritize your pleasure, right? As we were doing last month. And be present enough to look around, to see beauty, to connect with the earth, to stop, to look at a beautiful vista if you live somewhere like that, rather than having everything be, this is what I need to do to achieve what it is I need to achieve. Because sometimes just being present, that is a huge achievement. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is criticism. And that opening your mind and your heart to constructive criticism. So this goes under the category of voluntary vulnerability, right? We don't want to give people who we know are unkind. We don't want to give people who we know are very critical of us, like carte blanche, to tell us anything they want, because that doesn't feel good, and we know it's not a safe situation. But I cannot imagine being high achieving without being really open to constructive criticism. And even if it's just criticism, when people write in things they didn't like about my launch, when they write in things that I said this or I said something that made somebody feel bad, even if my first response is to be defensive or to feel like they're not being grateful because I did whatever I did, I promise you, A, I never respond that way, but B, I come back around and I look and say, what value is in this communication from this person for me? I don't need to be defensive, especially if it's from the general public, like I don't even know this person. But I can't tell you how much value I get from every bit of criticism that is thrown at me online. I mean, unless it's someone really just being straight up mean, but I don't really get that much. I do get people saying, hey, you said this thing, I thought it was insensitive. Thank you. Hey, if you thought it was insensitive, maybe other people did too, you know? So being closed to constructive criticism or being so defensive that people in your life who love you are afraid to approach you, don't approach you when they have something that they'd like to say to you. This really negatively impacts the intimacy, the depth of connection that you experience in your life. So if we're wanting a deep dive, if we're wanting to create deep and intimate relationships, there has to be room for someone to give us constructive criticism. Now, that doesn't mean that I just take constructive criticism from anybody on the planet, right? I don't. And I don't think that, my mother has a right to weigh in on what I'm doing with my course, right? So it's got to be in context, right? And it can't be judgment couched as constructive criticism, right? So I'm very sensitive to someone being like, no, I'm just wanting to give you constructive criticism. And I'm like, no, you're not. You just judged me. That's all I felt from that. So it takes a little bit for your inside for you to be able to make the distinction between, am I being defensive, or is this person judging me? Or can I just let all my defenses go and listen to what they have to say, especially if it's someone that you trust? Let me see if I could just listen without being defensive. What would that be like? Because that's a huge shift from perfectionism into high achievement, which is really what we want, because don't we want to enjoy the ride? So I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this. I want to see what your quiz reveals. I'm giving you a checklist so that you're able to be like, yes, check, check, check. These are the things, or no, maybe you're not a perfectionist. Maybe you're only a high achiever. And then we're going to move into what are the steps that you'll take during this month to basically shift the perfectionism into high achievement so that you can enjoy your life more. I will see you in our Facebook group. Bye, you guys.